There are moments in life when God calls you back to Him through the simplest yet most powerful acts. Sometimes it is not a great storm, a dramatic miracle, or a life-changing event that transforms your destiny. Sometimes it is a whisper, a scripture, a verse, a psalm that shifts everything. This is one of those moments. You are standing at a divine threshold. For too long, you may have battled with lack, with financial stress, with fear of the future, with the pressure of responsibilities, with the heaviness of not knowing how tomorrow will unfold. You may have walked through seasons where every step felt uphill, every plan was delayed, every opportunity slipped through your fingers. You may have given much, worked hard, prayed sincerely, yet still felt stuck in the same cycle of struggle. But now, God is placing something powerful in your hands, a key, a psalm, a spiritual weapon, a door-opening code from heaven that has the power to break what has been holding you back. Read this psalm for 3 days and watch what happens. Because when God speaks, poverty trembles. When God moves, limitations break. When God breathes on your life, doors you never imagined begin to open. And the psalm you are being guided to read is not just a set of verses. It is an activation. It is a declaration. It is a divine alignment between your earthly reality and your heavenly inheritance. For 3 days, as you read this psalm, something inside you will begin to shift. Something invisible will begin to move. Something divine will begin to rise. God is about to rewrite your story of lack, replace it with abundance, and erase the poverty, financial, emotional, spiritual, and generational, that has followed you for far too long. Because poverty is not only the absence of money, it is the presence of fear. It is the presence of doubt. It is the presence of generational patterns that tell you, this is all you will ever have. Poverty is a mindset that whispers, you don't deserve more. Poverty is a spiritual fog that makes you forget who you are and whose you are. But when you read this psalm, you are not just reading words, you are stepping into truth. You are breaking mental chains. You are commanding your spirit to rise. You are telling your destiny, I am ready. You are telling your future, open up. You are telling your past, you no longer define me. You are telling your poverty, your assignment has ended. For 3 days, you will speak words that heaven recognizes, words that angels respond to, words that darkness cannot resist, words that open pathways you could not open on your own. Because your battle is not only physical, it is spiritual. And spiritual battles require spiritual weapons. And the psalm you are being guided to read carries the vibration of deliverance, provision, restoration, and divine breakthrough. It doesn't just speak to your needs, it speaks to your future. It doesn't just comfort your heart, it elevates your spirit. It doesn't just encourage you, it transforms you. Imagine this each day you read it, layers of fear begin to fall off. Old beliefs begin to dissolve, inner resistance begins to weaken, mental blocks begin to break apart, you start seeing possibilities instead of limitations, you start feeling hope instead of heaviness, you start sensing breakthroughs instead of barriers, because God is renewing your mind. The greatest transformation always begins within. When your beliefs shift, your decisions shift. When your vision expands, your opportunities expand. When your inner world becomes aligned with faith, your outer world becomes aligned with abundance. As you read this psalm for 3 days, you are realigning yourself with heaven. You are lifting your thoughts from the level of worry to the level of worship. You are lifting your emotions from the level of fear to the level of faith. You are lifting your expectations from the level of survival to the level of overflow. Poverty cannot exist where faith is active. Poverty cannot remain where gratitude grows. Poverty cannot stand where divine truth is spoken. This psalm is not simply read, it is absorbed, it is felt, it is lived, it becomes part of your heartbeat, your energy, your mindset, your identity. And 3 days is not just a number. 3 represents resurrection, restoration, and divine completion. On the 3rd day, Jesus rose. On the 3rd day, victory became visible. On the 3rd day, the impossible became possible. So when you read this psalm for 3 days, you are declaring resurrection over your finances, restoration over your opportunities, renewal over your destiny, and liberation from every pattern that ever kept you small. You are telling heaven, I am ready for alignment. You are telling God, I believe in your promise. You are telling your life, from this moment everything changes. You are telling poverty, you have no power over me. Imagine yourself waking up on day one, you open the psalm, you begin to read. At first the words feel simple, but as you continue, something begins to stir. You feel a peace that you forgot existed. You feel a strength awakening. You feel God drawing near. That is not coincidence, that is connection. Day 2 arrives. You read again. The psalm feels different now. It feels deeper. It feels alive. You sense clarity returning. You sense courage rising. You start seeing solutions where you once saw problems. You start seeing possibilities where you once saw obstacles. You start seeing blessings where you once saw burdens. Because each time you read it, your spirit is being reprogrammed for abundance. Then comes day 3. This is the day heaven responds. This is the day the spiritual atmosphere around your life shifts. This is the day God begins to align opportunities, connections, resources, and favor in your direction. This is the day invisible barriers break. This is the day poverty loses its grip on you. Because on the 3rd day, God moves. You were not created to struggle endlessly. You were not created to live in a constant state of pressure, fear, or insufficiency. God did not design you to merely survive. He created you to flourish. He created you to rise. He created you to expand. He created you to walk in purpose, power, and provision. Poverty is not your destiny. It is not your identity. It is not your inheritance. When you came into this world, you came carrying divine potential, divine gifts, divine intelligence, divine creativity, divine purpose. The world may have tried to bury these gifts under shame, fear, disappointment, or hardship, but they are still there. They are still alive. They are still waiting. And this psalm awakens them. When you read it, you are not just praying. You are activating your God-given identity. You are claiming the abundance that was always meant for you. You are stepping into the river of divine flow where struggle ends and purpose begins. The psalm becomes a reminder that God is your provider, your defender, your guide, your source. Your job can change, but God does not. Your circumstances may shift, but God remains. Your bank balance may fluctuate, but God is constant. People may disappoint, but God never does. God is not limited by your past. He is not intimidated by your challenges. He is not confused about your future. He has already written the chapter where you overcome. He has already prepared the season where you rise. He has already designed the opportunities that will elevate you. He has already arranged the doors that will open for you. All he needs is your faith, your willingness to believe again, to read again, to hope again, to rise again. And as you read this psalm, your life begins to align with divine timing. What once felt delayed begins to accelerate. What once felt out of reach begins moving toward you. What once seemed impossible begins unfolding before your eyes. Because faith accelerates destiny. Abundance is not just money, it is clarity, peace, wisdom, confidence, purpose, and divine favor. When these flow into your life, everything else follows. Money becomes attracted to you. Opportunities become magnetized toward you. Resources begin to find you. People begin to favor you. When you operate from faith, you become unstoppable. This psalm does not just help you escape poverty, it positions you for prosperity. Not prosperity built on ego, but on divine purpose. Not prosperity built on pressure, but on peace. Not prosperity built on fear, but on faith. As you read, you are reminding your spirit that you were created to shine, to rise, to build, to create, to contribute, to lead, to inspire, to transform. You are not a burden, you are a blessing. You are not a failure, you are becoming. You are not abandoned, you are guided. You are not overlooked, you are chosen. There are blessings with your name on them. There are opportunities waiting for your presence. There are miracles preparing to unfold in your life. There are breakthroughs forming in the unseen. And your faith, expressed through this psalm, calls them forward. By the time these 3 days are over, something will be different. You will feel lighter. You will feel clearer. You will feel stronger. You will feel aligned. You will feel God's hand on your life. Poverty cannot stand in the presence of a person whose spirit is awake. Poverty cannot stay where purpose rises. Poverty cannot remain where God is honored. You are stepping into a new chapter. You are stepping into a new energy. You are stepping into a new identity. You are stepping into a new season. 3 days, 1 psalm, a completely transformed life. Read it with faith. Read it with expectation. Read it with courage. Read it with belief. Read it knowing that God is not making a suggestion. He is giving you a pathway. And as you walk this pathway with sincerity, heaven will respond, doors will open, abundance will flow, and poverty, financial, emotional, and generational, will be erased from your life. Because God is not done with you, He is only beginning. And the chapter you are stepping into is richer, brighter, stronger, and more abundant than anything you have ever seen before. Your breakthrough has already begun. The first message is that poverty is not merely a financial condition but a spiritual fog that blinds a person to their true potential, identity, and divine inheritance. Poverty begins long before a person feels it in their pockets. It begins when they start believing the lie that they are not enough, that they are not capable, that they are destined to struggle just because life has been difficult. It settles into the mind like a shadow, whispering that abundance is for others, not for you. It convinces you that your dreams are too large, your resources too small, and your future too uncertain. But this is not the truth. This is the fog. It clouds your vision, so you cannot see who you truly are, a child of God, created with purpose, equipped with gifts, and destined for more than survival. This psalm becomes the light that cuts through that fog. When you read it with faith for 3 days, you are not performing a ritual, you are creating space for clarity to return. Each verse becomes a spiritual wind that blows away the dust of fear, the weight of generational beliefs, and the limitations placed on you by past experiences. As you read, the chains you didn't even know you carried begin to loosen. The fear of failure, the fear of not being enough, the fear of trying and losing, all of these begin to dissolve. You start to remember that lack is not your identity, and poverty is not your destiny. Something powerful happens when your spirit hears truth. You begin to rise, you begin to stretch, you begin to believe again. As the fog lifts, your vision sharpens. You start seeing possibilities that were blurred before, opportunities that were hidden, and strengths in yourself that poverty tried to silence. The psalm awakens you to the reality that God has already placed abundance within you. Creativity, resilience, ideas, courage, faith, and that nothing can stop a person who becomes aware of their divine inheritance. When you read this psalm for 3 days, you are not just absorbing words, you are reclaiming your identity. You are stepping out of the shadows of smallness and stepping into the light of purpose. You begin breaking mental limitations that said, "This is all you will ever be." You begin healing emotional wounds that made you shrink instead of expand. You begin breaking generational patterns that have kept your family in cycles of struggle. These 3 days become a spiritual awakening. The psalm becomes a declaration of who you truly are, and as the fog of poverty lifts, you start walking boldly toward the abundance God has already written into your destiny. The second message is that God does not want you to live a life of lack, anxiety, or insufficiency. Too often we accept struggle as normal, as if God designed us to live in constant fear of tomorrow. But that is not the heart of God. He did not breathe life into you so you would spend your days worrying about resources, stressing about bills, or doubting your worth. God's intention has always been abundance. Abundance of peace, abundance of purpose, abundance of opportunity, and yes, abundance of provision. Lack and anxiety are not divine assignments. They are signs that you have drifted away from the truth of who God is and who you are in Him. That is why the psalm becomes a spiritual reset. It pulls you out of the noise of fear and places you back into the truth of heaven. When you read it, you are reminded that you were never meant to navigate life with an empty spirit. You were created with purpose, meaning that your existence is not accidental or insignificant. You were supplied with grace, meaning that God has already given you the strength, the ideas, the resilience, and the spiritual resources you need to rise. You were surrounded by blessings, even the ones you cannot yet see, connections being prepared, doors being formed, Opportunities arranging themselves in the unseen realm. This psalm reminds you that heaven is not silent, it is working on your behalf. When spoken consistently, this psalm becomes more than a prayer, it becomes a frequency that aligns your spirit with God's abundance. It awakens divine favor, the kind of favor that positions you in the right place at the right time, the kind of favor that causes people to remember your name, the kind of favor that shifts outcomes in your direction. Suddenly, opportunities that once felt out of reach begin to find you. Ideas begin to flow. Solutions become clearer. Doors that were closed begin to open as if touched by an invisible hand. Your atmosphere changes. The heaviness that once surrounded your life begins to lift. The tension in your heart begins to ease. You feel a new strength rising within you, a confidence not built on money, income, or circumstance, but built on the unshakable truth that God is with you and for you. This psalm becomes a spiritual atmosphere shifter. Where there was fear, it brings faith. Where there was lack, it brings vision. Where there was anxiety, it brings peace. Where there was stagnation, it brings movement. You begin to feel the air around your life changing, becoming lighter, clearer, and filled with expectancy. Because when you align your words with God's truth, heaven aligns your path with His abundance. And as you continue speaking this psalm, day after day, your life begins to transform, not by force, not by struggle, but by divine alignment. Opportunities become attracted to you like magnets. Favor begins to precede you. Blessings begin to surround you. And you start walking with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that God did not design them for lack, He designed them for greatness. The third message is that reading this psalm for 3 days is not a ritual. It is an alignment with heaven's frequency. God is not asking you to perform a routine. He is inviting you to tune your spirit to His voice, His power, and His promises. Heaven has a frequency, a vibration of truth, abundance, favor, and divine order. When your mind is overwhelmed with fear, when your heart is heavy with worry, when your thoughts are clouded by doubt, you fall out of alignment with that frequency. You begin operating from panic rather than purpose, from scarcity rather than abundance, from confusion rather than clarity. But when you read this psalm with sincerity and faith, you step back into alignment. You begin harmonizing with heaven. The words of the psalm act like spiritual tuning forks, bringing your mind, heart, and spirit back into the rhythm of God's truth. You start seeing life not through the lens of lack, but through the lens of possibility. You start feeling not the weight of your circumstances, but the presence of God supporting you through them. As you read, your thoughts begin shifting from fear to faith. Fear tells you that you are alone, unprepared, and unequipped. Faith reminds you that God is with you, ahead of you, and within you. Fear whispers that things will get worse. Faith declares that things are already turning around. Fear limits your vision. Faith expands it. With every verse you speak, with every line you meditate on, the stronghold of fear weakens and the foundation of faith strengthens. Your emotions also begin to move from worry to confidence. Worry drains your energy, steals your peace, and closes your creativity. Confidence restores your strength, revives your hope, and awakens your inner power. As you read the psalm, your emotional landscape transforms. The anxiety that once felt heavy begins to melt. The stress that used to sit on your chest starts lifting. A quiet assurance starts forming in your spirit. The feeling that something good is coming, that something divine is working behind the scenes, that you are not forgotten, that you are being prepared. And then something remarkable happens. Your actions begin reflecting the person God always intended you to be. Instead of shrinking back, you step forward. Instead of hesitating, you make bold moves. Instead of doubting your gifts, you begin using them. Instead of expecting the worst, you prepare for the best. You start walking with a posture of purpose, speaking with clarity, thinking with wisdom, and acting with courage. You become aligned with your true identity, strong, capable, favored, guided, and destined. This alignment is what destroys poverty at its root. Poverty cannot survive in a mind filled with faith. It cannot remain in a heart filled with confidence. It cannot stand in a life aligned with divine purpose. Poverty is dismantled not only by what you earn, but by what you believe. When you align with heaven's frequency, you stop attracting struggle and start attracting solutions. You stop expecting difficulty and start expecting divine intervention. You stop living as a victim of circumstance and start living as a carrier of God's abundance. And as your inner world transforms, your outer world follows, abundance begins to flow, ideas come easily, opportunities appear unexpectedly, people favor you, doors open that were once locked, pathways clear that were once blocked. The very things you once thought impossible begin unfolding effortlessly, because alignment creates access. Reading this psalm for 3 days is the moment where heaven and your destiny meet. It is the moment where your spirit rises, your vision clears, your courage returns, and your life begins shifting toward the abundance God has always planned for you. This alignment changes everything.